Now, I'm pretty sure when we were all growing up, we've heard this, right? Rain, rain, go away, come again another day. Jack and Jill went up the hill, chubby cheeks, dimple chin, eyes are blue, lovely too. I mean, these are rhymes that we've grown up with. And not to forget these books as well, where we talk about, our first book that talks about what we look like and our family and the food that we eat. But for a moment, have we thought that does this look like us? Does this represent who we are and India and our families? Uh, and it's quite interesting, during our journey when we started doing research, before we launched Kutuki, that it was shocking for us to know that this still continues. In fact, I heard a story from, you know, uh, uh, somebody who is in a drought prone region in Maharashtra. And this father was saying that my son keeps singing, Rain, rain, go away, because his Anganwadi teacher has forced him to mug it, right? And I was just so appalled because it's just done because nobody's really thought what this means or really thought about the lyrics and seen how that really affects the minds of young children, because early childhood education has never been a priority, and that was really shocking for us. So that was a big eye opener. That's what really started our journey with Kutuki, this awareness. And I'm going to very quickly, talk about what we do. And we're creating awesome learning content for Indian preschoolers. We are putting Indian children first, and that is the big mission that we're on. And like Pranati mentioned, there are 200 million kids in India, and it's really important that, it's high time that learning resources, took into consideration. Uh, Something that represents them and their lives. So, a little bit about the team and my journey. I know a lot of you, when you signed up, had questions about me and about Kutuki. Kutuki, first of all, means it's a play on the word Kautuka in Sanskrit, which means the curious one. And it's founded by me and my co founder, Bharat. We also happen to be husband and wife, and we met as musicians, which is quite interesting about 10 years ago. Um, Both Bharat and I have spent several years in the corporate world. I went to the London School of Economics, Bharat went to ISB, and we were each in our own corporate lives, but we were also very passionate about music. I'm a trained opera singer, a Western classical singer. Bharat happens to be a trained violinist, a Carnatic violinist, and a guitarist, as well as an audio producer. So we were always performing, we were always making music through the course of our corporate lives and even college and school. But a couple of years ago, we decided that we wanted to make a much larger impact using music and the creative arts, and we quit. So we decided to quit it all. We quit our corporate jobs, we quit everything, and we plunged into the world of music. And in those couple of years, we experimented with a whole bunch of things. We were making music for films, for documentaries, we were doing podcasts. We even opened our a music academy and taught hundreds of kids. I've personally taught 200 music to 200 children, and that sort of led us to schools because we were doing a lot of audio content. And uh, we happened to do a Teach for India anthem, in fact, a couple of years ago, and also started visiting preschools. That's when a lot of preschool teachers were saying that, hey, can you please create fresh, something fresh? We're sick and tired of singing Baba Black Sheep and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and these meaningless things. Can you create something that's Indian, that's fun, that's educational? Because young children in this age group learn with music and storytelling rather than instruction. It needs to be, the medium needs to be engaging. So we thought, hey, let's give this a shot, and that was quite a success. Uh, and that's what led us to really digging deeper and building our understanding about the early learning space. During this journey, there's one example that I'd like to share, which I'm sure will resonate with a lot of you who are working as educators, on the ground. This one particular teacher, a veteran early educator who's taught thousands of children, was saying that 25 to 33% of the kids in her class were being screened for a learning disability. And the perceptive educator that she was, when she started digging a little deeper to understand why this is happening, she realized this had nothing to do with the kids, but in fact it had to do with the accents and the references that were used. Like for example, calling a brinjal aubergine, or your first vegetable book having broccoli and artichoke, and talking about Halloween and your houses having picket fences and fireplaces and things like that. And when the same thing was explained in the child's mother tongue, or in an Indian accent, or using references that you see in an everyday Indian home, the same group of children were able to participate so so effervescently in the conversation. There were a flurry of questions that they had, and that really was a huge challenge for her. But unfortunately, she couldn't do anything because that was what was mandated by her school, because she was merely employed there. And we realized that that's not because teachers don't, that there's lack of intention. It's because there are no resources. There are very limited resources that are available. So what we decided to do then was, while audio content was well and fine, we realized that alone is not enough, because children learn in multiple ways, right? There are oral learners, there are visual learners, you also have learners who are kinesthetic learners. So we realized that it's important for us to have a visual angle to our content as well, which was very important, which is why we started hiring visual artists. So when we started out, we were completely bootstrapped. It was all our savings that went into building Kutuki, and we were a team of about three people who were who started, and today we're at a 10-member team. So apart from Bharat and me, we also have some incredible creative people who are on board, who are storytellers, who are visual artists. We also have educators on board. We have somebody on board who handles technology of Kutuki to make the access of our content absolutely seamless on our product. And we have somebody who manages customer relationships and growth for us. All right. So now I'm going to paint a picture for you about early learning. Like, Pranati earlier said that we have 200 million kids under the age of 7, and we have just about 40,000 preschools, which is absolutely abysmal and ridiculous. And despite us really, there's strong evidence that suggests that 80 to 90% of the brain development happens here. Unfortunately, lack of access to preschools has been a big problem, and more so in tier 2, tier 3 cities. But having said that, the interesting analogy to this is that the number of smartphone users is just increasing. In fact, we're clearly seeing that the PRAI report very clearly says that in the next 2 years, we're going to see 60 to 70% of the households in India will have smartphones. So what that does is, smartphones as a medium, has become smartphones have become the go-to medium for parents and educators to access resources, and that's something we thought is very important for us to harness. uh, we also did an independent study to understand what is the digital consumption of kids, and we're definitely going to address the topic of screen time, which I'm sure will be something that's going to come up, and I'll talk about that probably at the end of the class, end of the webinar. And we realized that through our independent survey, we spoke to about 300 educators and parents. We realized that 68% of children do use mobiles to access content. Um, but having said that, the big problem that we saw was, despite the increase in smartphone usage and the number of children using mobile, the quality of content available that's age appropriate, that's culturally relevant, that's meaningful, there really is no such comprehensive solution that addresses the India market. The other important thing is, the Right to Education Act has not covered early childhood education. It was always an endeavor or an aspiration. But in the 2019 National Education Policy, we do see a change in that sense, where they do say that they are going to look at uh, ensuring that early childhood education is clubbed with the rest of the school education. So these are a few highlights of what the National Education Policy 2019 has to say about ECE. But we very clearly see that it's still not very concrete. Um, you can see that they're talking about pedagogical framework intended to support educators and parents, which is very exciting. They've spoken about learner friendly environments, and special attention to socioeconomically disadvantaged districts. And they also speak about a lot of advocacy to raise awareness about early learning, and how that affects learning during adulthood. um, but there's nothing really concrete yet about what do you mean by pedagogical framework. What are the kind of resources that are going to be used to ensure that it's meaningfully, it's actually useful for educators and parents at home. It's actually applied and not just something that's just uh, you know put as just like a tick mark or a checkbox, that's done. So these are things that are not very clear, and we feel the core of it all, the absolute core of it all is the learning resources itself, because learning resources can pretty much be used for educators and parents to use it as they please, depending on what type of learner their child is. Now, what is Kutuki's solution? Our focus mainly is, like I said, to create meaningful, engaging content that addresses the needs of Indian children. Our content is 100% Indian, and when I say that, I mean the characters that we create look like us, look like our children. They speak in languages and accents that we speak with every day at home. It represents different cultures and the food we eat, the festivals we celebrate, and the way our families live, their day-to-day lives. It's incredibly accessible, which is why we went mobile first, was because it was important that Kutuki's content should be accessible and affordable for any child, any parent, any educator in across India, across the spectrum of India. That was very important. And like I had made my case earlier, saying um, how smartphone adoption is continuing to increase, we believe that mobile is a great way to distribute it. And I will tell you why in our journey that was the best decision that we made, because if we had gone print or if we had gone any other medium, we would not have been able to reach the scale that we have today. The other important thing was to ensure that the content that we're creating is well researched. It actually Children are actually able to learn from that on the ground. Parents are actually able to use it to support learning at home, and meaningfully engage kids rather than watching generic content or content that's not age appropriate or unsafe, that's available, readily or freely on YouTube. So I'll just tell you a little bit about our content and our curriculum. So our content is available in three formats, which include animated stories and songs, illustrated ebooks, and animated stories, songs, and illustrated ebooks. And we also have experimented with print. I'll come to that in a bit. Um, Every piece of content is linked to an early learning milestone that's related to the 2 to 7 age range. Our content focuses on four broad domains of development, which include language and phonics, early number sense, and basic science, social, behavioral, and life skills, and cognitive development. Even though these may sound like separate buckets, I must highlight that they are not mutually exclusive. For example, if there is a story or a song or a piece of content around math, you could very well be learning language through that. Or if there's something about life skills, again, you could very well be learning something that's around cognitive development. So that's the beauty of early learning and early learning pedagogy, that we don't look at everything in silos. It's important to look at everything holistically, which is really exciting. And the creative medium of storytelling and songs allows you to do that. Now, how do we go about creating content on Kutuki? The first thing that we constantly keep doing is research and develop our curriculum. Our curriculum is never going to be something that's, a framework that's set in stone, because especially in India, first of all, there is no curriculum framework. In the US, for example, you have the Common Core, which has certain guidelines in place and a very robust, framework that's in place. But you can't really readily apply that in India because of the vast diversity and access to resources that's there. So what we did was we looked at best practices of different early learning philosophies. This included the Montessori method, Reggio Emilia, high scope, multiple intelligences, Waldorf. We looked at all of them and we took best practices from that and contextualized every piece of content to suit the Indian context. This was a long process and it's not complete. This is an ongoing process which we're learning every single day. Our focus right after the research and curriculum development, we focus on story and songwriting, which I mentioned earlier, that every piece of content that we create is linked to a learning milestone. So to give you an example, shapes, learning 2D shapes is a very important learning milestone, for 2.5, 3-year-olds. And we have a story that talks about learning those shapes and colors through the medium of bindis, because bindis are available in every Indian home, and we've seen that children are easily able to connect with that and play around with bindis and make a game out of it at home. So things like that, that the way we've looked at contextualizing. Then when it comes to story and songwriting as well, we're really particular about the number of words that are used per sentence, etc., the grammar, keeping it. We're very mindful of ensuring that it's age appropriate. We then move on to the illustration and animation, which is the visuals, which again is a really, we have a robust process in ensuring that leads to learning outcomes, and then we polish it off with the music and voiceover. Our current focus right now is to look at 2 to 4-year-olds and complete the content that covers the learning milestones for this age group, and soon we're then going to move on to 5 to 7. So this is just an overview about how what we've got about 30 themes on the app right now, and these are all aligned with with preschool curriculum, that irrespective of what philosophy you follow. We have 150 plus stories and songs across different languages: English, Hindi, Marathi, and Kannada. And we're soon going to launch Tamil and Telugu as well. We currently have 60,000 active users, and our rating at on Play Store is about 4.8. And this is with very minimal marketing. And we're seeing that most of our users come through word of mouth and organic growth. This is just an overview on our demographic. While initially we were a tier one use case, but the minute we launched our content in regional languages, boom, we started expanding to tier two, tier three cities as well. And the persona of our customer would be a middle class mother. Cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the milestones, because again, in your questions, you spoke about what is the research that we've done, how we gone about building our curriculum. So here I've taken a couple of examples of language, specifically of language milestones. So you can clearly see between 8 months to 2 years, really young children will respond to familiar names, imitate simple actions, etc. So you can see that one of the most important things is that they respond to familiar names. So if the resources that you use, or the first book that you're reading, or the story that you're reading doesn't have names that children see every day or hear every day, it gets very confusing even at that age. At the same time, you'll see the spurt of vocabulary growth, right from 50 words all the way up to 2,000 words. And you will see how right from looking at 2 or 3 words together all the way to narrating a story on their own, it's a whole process. So keeping these milestones in mind, we have mapped every piece of content according to this, and the way we've written it and the way they've been scripted, the way the visuals have been done, are keeping in mind these milestones and ensuring that they're able to actually cope with this. But I must put a caveat here and say that we've also seen this is just a framework. Many times we've also seen that a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old is still at the learning stage of, say, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. Similarly, we've also seen 3-year-olds who are able to cope with content that's actually meant for a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old. So at Kutuki, while age is a sort of like a benchmark that we start with, the way children can navigate through our content, we completely leave that up to them. If a 3-year-old wants to access a 6-year-old's content because they like it and because they're able to engage with it and because they're able to learn from it, we will never stop them. Similarly, if a 6-year-old wants to explore a 3-year-old's content, that is also open. So we really, really want to personalize this based on the learning stage of the child. So here I very quickly wanted to talk to you about how Kutuki's content is being used on the ground. This particular story talks about, yoga, and it takes young children through a series of asanas, right from Tadasana all the way to Asana. And I'm going to play this particular video for you, where you're able to see how children have actually enacted this in class. And this was completely out of the blue. We had no idea this was happening. But this is in a preschool in Bangalore where the teacher shared a video with us of the kids actually reenacting our videos as part of their graduation ceremony. And these are 4-year olds.
I kneel down and press my hands to the ground. Now I am stable, strong and stable. I lift up my knees and raise my bum. Make sure my heels touch the ground. Now I am a hill, quiet and still. Then I lie on my stomach, place my palms next to my shoulders, and lift my upper body. Now I am a snake, alert and awake. I do namaste again and fold my legs, joining the soul.
How Kutuki's story has been used in class. Similarly, the next story that talks about textures and talks about what material you could use or what material would be ideal to build a house, and it explores the sense of touch. And we had preschoolers building their own house. After having watched this video, and a teacher had made a whole lesson plan around that. The third video talks about a song that we have which speaks about the importance of conservation and the environment and protecting the environment, and it's called Mother Nature. And here there's a little video of a young 6-year-old having fallen in love with our song, and she was performing this for her parents at home. The other question that a lot of you had is, how are you testing? How do you know that there's learning actually happening in class? And that's a great question. And like I said, we still don't have a lot of the answers. We are learning every day. And the best way for us to learn is, which is why we launched our own app. We launched our own distribution channel because we wanted to stay in touch with all our users and all our parents and educators. So one thing that we do is we are very, very data, driven as an organization. We look at our data and usage and engagement every single day, minute by minute, to see what pieces of content are working and what pieces of content are not. That's step number one. The next thing that we do is every week we speak to about 100 mothers and 100 educators to really understand how they're using the content that's popular and the content that's not popular. Why is it that they're not able to connect with it? We also visit schools. We test our content on the ground constantly, and that keeps helping us iterate what we're doing as far as the way we're writing scripts, the way we're building visuals, and the curriculum itself. We're going to put a much more robust process in place as we grow, as we scale, as we grow our user base. And there's going to be a very there will always be a strong research bent of mind at Kutuki, apart from us being a content company. Now, I'd like to share a few examples here, which was really interesting about Kutuki's content. You can see here that a parent said that this is probably a parent who's a lot more aware, who realized that nursery rhymes didn't really make too much sense, and this particular parent was very anti-screen. But having said that, she also would keep looking at online resources to keep her child engaged, because it's really hard keeping young children engaged at home, because the maximum amount of time that they spend is at home and not at school. So that's when Kutuki really relieved her of finding great stories and great songs that she could use as far as for bedtime, or even something where which would help her child learn new vocabulary, etc. when they would come back home from school. You can also see that parents appreciate the fact that they're able to see characters that represent our kids, rather than the stereotype of blonde hair and blue eyes, which really doesn't connect with our kids and represent who we are. um, so these are a couple of examples. This is interesting, where you can see that parents have written to us, and these are parents we absolutely don't know. We're really active on Instagram, and we keep getting these messages all the time over email, Instagram, etc. You can see some of the messages that have come, that children are actually practicing a lot of things offline, and narrating stories and talking about it and having endless discussions about it well beyond the app. I must also mention one very important thing, that especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities, we're seeing a couple of use cases where in homes where parents don't speak English and they have a very strong aspiration to help their children learn English, they're looking at Kutuki's Hindi videos, for example, first, and then looking at the English video and then correlating that. So we've heard stories from parents where a child has understood that Neela means blue, or Khilona means toy, and uh, also complex vocabulary like slender means patla. So these are all things that were incredible, and we've heard this. These are first hand account of parents telling us this. In terms of how regional languages aiding English language learning. This again is talking about screen time. These are all parents who are very conscious about their screen time usage, and they're very particular about what they watch during screen time. And we repeatedly keep getting requests, parents telling us that it's very difficult for them to curate and find good quality content that's safe, ad free, in an environment where children are not exposed to violent content, or content that is not appropriate for their age. And Kutuki has come to be a place of incredible trust for them. The minute they are on Kutuki, they know that the child is being exposed to something that is certainly meaningful. And we are ardent believers. I've been, like I said, that I've been an experiential educator for a long time, and so have a lot of people in our team. And the challenge with screen time today is, the biggest problem with screen time is not merely technology. It's just become this absolute bad word, right? Like screen time, it's awful, and it's bad. But the biggest challenge that we see is not the medium, it's not the device itself, but the problem is the quality of content. And if you have a mobile phone at home, whether you like it or not, your child is a digital native. So instead of banning it, because banning never works, we know that human psychology is such that if you ban something, chances are that you will find another way to get to it. We will truly address this problem by taking content, people who are creating content, holding them accountable to create good quality content. If you see the junk on YouTube, you would be surprised. You will click on something that says Mickey Mouse, and uh, you know 3 clicks away, and you're suddenly seeing Mickey Mouse doing something incredibly inappropriate. And there is no control. Even if you are on YouTube Kids, there's really no control over that. So we as content players believe that it's important that, as we talk about junk food and healthy food, it's really important for us to talk about healthy content, and providing a digital environment that's safe and meaningful for young children. So I'm going to yeah, I'm almost at the end of my slides, and this is one particular story that I want to talk to you about, where the title says, "You are a busy parent. Let us help you." I hope you can read this. This is from an educator who was working in Bangalore with a group of children, and then she moved to a remote location in Assam called Majuli, and she introduced Kutuki there. And this is someone who I absolutely don't know. I got this email out of the blue from her, and she mentioned that the educators there who have all the intention to make learning interesting for kids absolutely connected with the app and thought that this was something that was appropriate for young children from the local tribe. That was so exciting for us because uh, it just shows that we're not just a tier one use case or just a tier two use case. We could also look at how Kutuki could be accessed and be useful as it stands today, even in rural India. And that's why for me this webinar was so important, because through you we will be able to learn how children are using the content and how you are using the content on the ground, if you have suggestions for us about what we could be doing better. Hi Nadia, that's such a great question, and I we completely understand your concerns, and the fact that you're saying that you're teaching phonics and blends to kids, in so clearly their learning stage is similar to that of a preschooler. We've had a lot of instances where 10, 11, even 12-year-olds have been using Kutuki exactly for the same reason. Where parents have found it really hard for children to cope with what's happening in school, and for whatever reasons children have not been able to find that method, something that they can connect with, and that has affected their learning. They have been using Kutuki, and we do see them starting with our some of our simpler stories. The great thing about Kutuki is, one, we also have voiceovers with that support the story, so even if the child is unable to read at that point, they're able to sort of understand through the voiceovers coupled with a visual representation of what the story is about. So that we have seen in a big way has aided learning. So for example, we have a story that talks about prepositions and talks about a little cat, who's run away and she's hiding either above or below and things like that. And because of that connection, that pictorial voiceover as well as the simple text, we've seen that children are able to use words in context, simple words in context. So definitely, please try Kutuki out. We would love to hear your story, and feel free to give us suggestions about what you think we could add as well to support you. So I don't know about Baby Shark, I really don't know why that song is so popular, but it is. But please look at Kutuki's songs. I mean, we've got so many songs that are there. Like, so I'll give you an example of, when we write songs, we think about things that young children will connect with immediately, right? And the number one thing is family. So we had this song, which is our most popular song right now, which talks about the bond between grandparents and their grandchildren. It's a very, very simple song. And we also use words like we replace grandpa and grandma with dada and dadi, tata and party, and that has now moved on to being aji and ajoba, ajja and aji, and all kinds of things, right? You're immediately able to see that connect. In fact, if you would have seen one of our examples, it said that one parent actually mentioned how her child asks her in-laws to go out of the house so that she can welcome them by singing this song. So it could just be simple references. And the other thing, from a technical standpoint, as far as music goes, it would be lovely to have Indian rhythms and Indian beats. A lot of our songs have that, because that again brings in a very strong connect, especially when you're using regional language. We see that a lot of it gets diluted when you start using a lot of Western beats. Also, when we are composing music, we make sure that we use a lot of Indian rhythms, specifically when we're talking about using regional language, because that makes it a lot more authentic and a lot more seamless when you listen to it and you're trying to connect with it. I can go on and on as far as music goes. I would love to connect with you post this and discuss a little more. But definitely check out Kutuki songs. Uh, uh, Like I said, I can go on and on, so I should just stop. So print, we would love to create like a whole library full of Kutuki's books. Print is so expensive. So what we decided to do, because like you, we had a lot of people saying we like Kutuki's content, but we want it offline. Uh, so what we were able to do was print two books. One book is called Breakfasts of India, which talks about breakfasts across the country, from Kashmir to Hyderabad to, you name it. It talks about how a young child discovers what his friends are eating across the country. It's a very popular book of ours. And the next book is called New Years of India, which talks about how there's just not one New Year in India. India has so many New Years, and we take children on a narrative and a visual journey across the country about how families come together, different communities come together to celebrate. So these are our two titles, which was completely crowdfunded in less than a week, and we have copies available on Amazon. You're welcome to pick them up there. Yeah, and we will be adding more titles soon, uh, but not at the moment. So I'm guessing when you mean activities specifically to the app, I'm guessing you're talking about tracing, phonics and alphabet tracing and numbers, right? Because those are, and we also have interactive stories. So yes, we're going to bring in tracing for regional language Varnamala and alphabets as well. That's going to happen soon. But we're also looking at experimenting with bilingual worksheets, making it digital as well, interactive, digitally as well as offline. We're figuring that out. It's not out yet, but people keep you posted. Please, follow Kutuki. We're pretty active on social media, so if there's anything new, we're always keeping people up to date. Or you just reach out to me personally. I'm happy to stay in touch with you and let you know when this happens. So this is also such an exciting question. We've had when we've made our calls, we've had older sisters and brothers talking to us saying why they decided to download Kutuki, because they felt that their younger sibling was watching junk on YouTube and Chota Bheem, and then coming home and beating everybody up, and they were so upset, and that's when they went and tried to look for content that makes sense, and that's how they chanced upon Kutuki. So a lot of times, very involved siblings, a lot of siblings who take on the role of a parent, for whatever. I mean, at least in our interaction, we've seen that the sibling is given the responsibility of supporting the younger sibling in learning, and Kutuki has become like a partner. So when they're doing tracing activities or when they're learning phonics, we've seen that the older sibling looks at it himself or herself, and then sort of works, spends time with their little one. So this sort of gives them a little bit of a structure. It gives them ideas. It tells them where to begin, how to start. Like if you're talking about counting, where do you start? How do you help a young, a sibling get interested in this? So our stories sort of become a starting point for them. We do see that, so that will be very interesting. We're seeing that, so feel free to try it. Oh, we're going to do Gujarati soon. I promise you. Every Indian language is going to be covered on Kutuki. I promise you. But we're looking at Tamil and Telugu now, because there's so many Tamil Telugu speakers. Oh my God! And so we're going to focus on that. But we're going to move to Punjabi, Gujarati, also post that. That's a great question. So like I'd mentioned, that early education in itself is like a Pandora's box. There's so much that we have to learn every day to be able to get this right, which is why we focused on something that was a little bit more mainstream, and to help ensure that we have our basics in place when we're building content. With respect to special needs, I think it's very important that we bring on board experts who understand this and ensure that what we're doing actually adds value. But having said that, we've had instances where we recently spoke to a mother who we suddenly saw such a spike in her usage of Kutuki, and I was very curious and I gave her a call, and she mentioned that she has twins, and one of the twins has a speech delay, and she's been trying so hard to help him speak in English or converse at all in English, simple things, but he was just refusing to do so. But the other twin was absolutely, fine, and he was 5 years old. But once she chanced upon Kutuki, she slowly started noticing that he was able to, for example, we have a story called No Not Yet, which talks about safety. When you encounter something hot on when you're crossing the road, etc. And he kept going around the house saying, "No, not yet. Wait a minute. I'm not going to do this now because I'm not ready. I don't feel safe." And he kept doing that, and his mother was completely blown away. So she saw so much value in Kutuki, and I mean, again, this was not something that we had planned, it just happened. Um, I think that I would, if you are working with children with special needs, I would love for you to try it out during the 6 month period. Please give us suggestions. Like I'm saying, that I'm really looking to you to give us suggestions about what we could do better. Because our content has visuals, audio, as well as text. I think in that sense it could support children with special needs, but it's not done in with the sort of, like, we've not done this programmatically to address that. But as an experiment, please feel free to try it. So again, like I said, see, I truly believe, and in whatever I've seen, I think children love stories and songs. They connect so well to that, and when that's, through fun and play, through something creative, when children learn, that's the best form of learning rather than it being instructional, especially for children at this age group. And I would think that first, second would, it's around that sort of cusp where children are just moving on to, a very heavy duty, CBSE, ICSE, SSC curriculum and things like that. So there is still scope for allowing that, that to explore that childlike wonder through the medium of story and song, and make learning interesting. So I think story, if you believe that stories and songs are a powerful medium to engage your class, definitely look at Kutuki. We have a lot of stories that are much longer. For example, we have a lot of science related stories that talk about why humans can't fly and why birds can. Similarly, we have stories about scavenger fish, and this peculiar habit that they have about creating these cleaning stations where they clean the mouth of big fish, and that's how they escape being eaten. Then we have a story, that talks about insectivorous plants like your picture plant and your Venus flytrap, etc. And that again is really interesting. We even have stories about space. So please go ahead and, absolutely, I don't see why you can't use Kutuki for first and second graders.